We don't really experience love towards ourselves. So we kind of have a misconception probably about love or what it is supposed to be. There are so many people writing like, I don't believe in love. It's not there just because they probably have trouble in their romantic life.
This is actually a controversial statement that I had on one of my TikToks one time, is in order to truly love who you are now, you have to love everything that brought you to this moment.
Hey, I'm so happy that it works. So good to see you.
You too.
How are you?
Life has been full of stepping into faith. So a lot of stepping into faith recently. Lots of courage, but it's been beautiful. What about you?
Interesting. Yeah, for me the same. So I just started this new project a couple of months ago. It's still so new, and
I've been watching.
Really. Yeah, what do you think?
Yes, I love it. I love the premise. I love the idea. I love your energy. It's been wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I love to have you as a guest today, really. I wanted to ask you already since the beginning almost. Yeah, I always wanted to ask you. So it's so cool that it fits right now. The idea of Insanity of the podcast is to question our normal belief systems in order to make us feel better about ourselves, to probably recognize that not everything that we believe in is actually true, and to figure out what truth is right for each and every one of us. And I gave it the name Insanity because it's like a double meaning. So it can be literally insanity. It can also be insanity because probably losing your mind sometimes is the best thing.
Well, yeah, the double play on words of being insanity seems like being insane in an insane world. So
Yes, yes. Depends on how you look at it. Yes. And I thought, well, if the world we live in today is so sane, but people are fundamentally unhappy, then probably it's not that sane, right? So maybe the most sane thing is to be a little crazy and to question what we have in front of us all the time.
yes.
Well, I really love your work. I admire it so much, and I'm following you since I have TikTok. So I think you were one of the first channels that I started following. It was in the very beginning, and yeah, I've seen that you are a yoga teacher or even a yoga master, and you plan all these cool
Yoga
adventures.
master.
Master, yeah. Well, yeah, for me, yes, because I'm just starting. So for me, it
What a
looks like
title.
yeah. You're planning all these cool retreats. I even wanted to be part of it one time. I'm sure I will in the future. I wanted to introduce you and to ask you about your story. So, how did you get where you are right now?
Where do we start? I was born. No. I would say I've always been a bit of a philosopher and a bit of a seeker. I recently went through ordination at the Parliament of World Religions, and they asked you, when was your first kind of spiritual experience, or when was the first time that your true self probably came out in terms of who you're going to be? And I remember being 12 years old, and I grew up in a rural Texas Christian, society. And I grabbed this book, and I don't know, maybe this book was next to the Harry Potter books or something. I got confused. I don't know why. I don't know why I grabbed this book, but I grabbed this book, and the book was titled "Everything is God: A Radical View on Non-Dual Judaism." And I remember reading this book at 12 years old. And to this day, I don't know what was in the book other than the title of "Everything is God." And even at that time, that spoke dear to me. So from birth, I guess I've always been destined to be a non-dualist. This view that God is everywhere and not this dual perspective of separateness. And that kind of dropped that book and went through my life. And then after a pretty eye-opening divorce to this one woman I was married to for 6 months, I went on this big quest of self-discovery. And I've always been the type of individual that when I go after something, I kind of obsess over it. So I was obsessed with self-discovery. And I remember the second book that made a huge difference in my life. I was in the airport in, I guess it was Paris. It was somewhere in France. And I
Mhm.
got this book at one of the stands. It was Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. And I remember reading that book and went on this whole path of self-discovery that was really centered around more entrepreneurial work and
Mhm.
finding your inner strength and getting very motivated, like Gary Vaynerchuk and all these different types of.
Yeah.
And and then that all changed when about 3 years into that, I ingested some plant medicine and it completely changed my life. And then I found yoga, and through getting really deep into yoga, I started seeing yoga everywhere. This union, I saw it in every faith. So to me, yoga wasn't in a cage specifically for Hinduism. To me, yoga was everywhere and everything. And so I started doing a deep dive into all the world's faith traditions. And that led me to an interfaith seminary, which I'm still in. I'll complete that in February, which led to realizing that my yoga classes were becoming more than just yoga classes. They were these deep dive into the world's faith traditions, using
Mhm.
in bringing in stories from Sufism and Christian mysticism, and bringing in different quotes from all these different gurus, saints, and monks. And I realized that my true path wasn't necessarily yoga in terms of just a normal yoga class for fitness, but it was actually more ministry, in the sense, ministry in the definition of its original definition of service.
Beautiful. And now you got your title as a reverend?
Yes, yes, I was bestowed. So interfaith is, it's all the faiths. So you have all the Abrahamic, all the Eastern, all the pagan, all the indigenous, all the New Age. And for most people, you'll find that even if you study interfaith, you gradually go towards one particular philosophy. And for me, it has always been Eastern philosophy, especially with Hinduism and Buddhism, Taoism. And so with that being the main focus, my mentor, I would say my guru from the school, he comes from the lineage of the Vedanta Society in Los Angeles. So through that lineage, he bestowed a name when I became a reverend of Satya Jayananda, which was which means victory to the joy of truth. So victory to the
Mhm.
joy
Mhm.
of truth. Because my main teachings are the teachings that came from me from my gurus in Nepal, which is healthy body, peaceful mind, joyful heart. It doesn't matter what we really believe in. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter really what rituals or spiritual technologies we use, so long as they are coming into these three things. And
Yeah.
so for me, joy is the highest teaching. Laughter is the highest practice of devotion. And so this victory to the joy of truth, I definitely felt was very befitting for the message of my ministry.
What a story. I really love that. I think there are many people who ask themselves, what should I do with my life? I'm not sure, or how can I do something impactful? And how did you realize for yourself that this is what you want to do? Was there a significant moment when you knew it?
For me, that significant moment was when I got serious in my practice, my
Mhm.
spiritual practice, especially in this age, which is one of the purpose of my calling. We're in an age where interfaith, interspirituality, it's not something you choose. It just is. I mean, here we are having this wonderful podcast, and you're in Germany, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
We're in Germany, I'm in Texas, and here we are having this moment instantaneously. So anybody can go on the internet or just go scroll through TikTok, and they're going to be just bombarded with
Hmm.
all these different spiritual philosophies, spiritual technologies from all the different world's faiths, which is fantastic because it brings us into this state of unity.
Yeah.
But what can be seen as a little bit of a cautionary tale is when we're introduced to all these different practices, they can lead to shallow, eclectic practices,
Yeah.
which can lead to spiritual bypassing and spiritual narcissism. The old adage where we start to build a lot of shallow holes everywhere instead of digging a deep well. So for me, going through my practice and the deeper I got, the more I realized that people started to be, in a way, kind of attracted to these teachings. They started being, in Buddha, we call it like this little bit of a Buddha field. I'm not saying I have like this huge Buddha field, but you know, when you walk up to someone and they're deeply centered in truth, they're present, and there's something that you're drawn to that person.
Yeah.
I believe that our spiritual practice starts off for us. We do it to cure our anxiety or our depression or find meaning. But somewhere along the way, if it's a good practice, what it's doing is it's dissolving that sense of I.
Yeah.
And as we do that, we start to see all the people around us are starting to benefit from your practice naturally, without you even trying.
Yeah.
There's this old beautiful saying in Hinduism that when the flower blossoms, the bees come. And so you
Yes.
start to see your practice eventually is not for you, it's for others.
Yes.
And that is a direct result of getting deep into a spiritual discipline. I believe that all roads lead to service. All spiritual practices,
Wow.
if the heart is, if the heart is part of that practice, which if we are in a dualistic world and we choose to live in that dualistic world, then the heart has to be involved because it's relationships.
Mm-hmm.
We start to see that our practice is no longer for us, it's for others. For me, there's nothing more important in this world than service. Because if we are reflections of the divine,
Mm-hmm.
if we look at the divine, what does the divine do? It serves.
Yes.
Nothing exists without service. Everything serves itself, interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh coins it. So if we're going to be direct reflections of who we truly are, then who we truly are is the act of love through service. And
True.
our goal, I feel, is to find out, what does that mean for you in terms of your occupation, how you go about the world, your passions? How can you direct that towards service?
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. I've realized every time when I get caught up in my own stories. So when I think, oh, I wanted something, whatever it was, and it didn't work out. So something didn't happen. And then for a short time, but still I can think something like, oh, it makes me sad. Why didn't it work out? Something. And then I remember, oh, it doesn't matter because I'm here for service. It's not even why am I even focusing on that? Because it's not, who cares? Like my mission is something completely different, and it cheers me up because every time I remember that it doesn't matter because I'm here for something completely different, and it can come on top. So things that I want, they kind of can add to my experience, and they probably will, but it doesn't even matter because I always remember, oh yeah, I'm here for service, and this is what brings the most fun and joy into my life. So I focus on that again, and then
Mm-hmm.
everything's good.
Yeah, that particular line of thinking brings me into this Sufi teaching of, our life is to have the journey of going from borrowed certainty to this deep inner knowing. And for me, that is true. That's true faith,
Mm-hmm.
is to go from this borrowed certainty to a deep inner knowing. Because the minute we start to question a particular aspect of our life or a particular moment in our life, and we're kind of going through that little battle in the mind, if we were in deep inner knowing, then we can just watch that and let it go, because we know that we're exactly where we need to be for the evolution of our spiritual heart.
Yes. Do you have a favorite practice when it comes to opening your heart? Because there are, like, I think many different ways to get into the heart, like through yoga, through meditation, through focus, probably mainly. But do you have a specific favorite one that you would recommend?
Well, if we're speaking in terms of practices, I would say two main practices. And for me, this first practice is the foundation, and it's just silence. I like to imagine that my mind is sometimes like a rock concert, and I'm listening to all this loud music, and I have a friend in my ear
Nice.
whispering. He's whispering, but I can't hear my friend because the music is so loud. Well, if I have a dedicated silent practice every morning and in the evening and maybe even during the middle of the day, it's as if someone turned down the speakers of the concert, and now I can hear that still small voice within
Mm-hmm.
that is directing me to where love wants me to go. Because if we can't listen to that, we might go to where I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But in each moment, how I include the heart into that silent practice is if I'm still enough, I can hear what love wants me to do in this moment. If I'm in an argument, or if I'm not forgiving someone, or I have to make a particular business decision, what does love want me to do? And to
Wow.
make that decision on your own sometimes can be difficult. And this is where the deep inner knowing and true faith, thy will be done, comes into play. Because if we can surrender into that silence, and we surrender into the natural flow that's always present, that directs us where we go. And it's much easier to live life that way. So a lot of people talk
Yes.
about free will. Regardless, free will, not free will, huge philosophical debate. For me, I'd rather not. I'd rather not. Direct me where to go. There's this beautiful saying in Hinduism of bhakti yoga, love and devotional yoga,
Mm-hmm.
is like the mother lion. When she wants to go somewhere, she picks the cub up and carries the cub.
Yeah, yeah.
Jnana yoga, yoga of knowledge, Buddhism, for instance, wonderful path, but it's more like the baby monkey and the mother. The mother monkey, if it takes off, the baby monkey has to jump on real quick. Oh, I want to go with you because the mother doesn't pick it up.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, one way the mother carries you through love, devotion, dance. The other one, it's through your own efforts,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe there needs to be a combination of both. But through my silent practice, I can listen to what love wants me to do. So that's the foundation,
Mm-hmm.
because if we're not silent, we can't hear.
Yes.
The second one I learned from Imam Jamal, and I highly encourage everyone to look him up. He's such a beautiful, heartfelt Sufi mystic. And Jamal Rahman, he wrote many books, but one of my favorites is The Laughter of the Sufis. And he taught us a meditation one time. It's a heart meditation
Mm-hmm.
for Sufism. And it's very simple. You place your hands on your heart and close your eyes, and you come into that deep space.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're in that space, you give yourself a term of endearment. So, for instance, if I'm using James, I would say in my mind, my dear brother James,
Oh.
or my beloved James. And you speak in your mind with passion, with love. I always say, imagine that you're speaking to the person you love most in this world. And
Mm-hmm.
you sit there for, let's say, 10 minutes, and you just keep saying this poetry to yourself
Mm-hmm.
until you feel it in your heart. My beloved James,
Oh.
I love you so, so much. You can feel that vibration of love that starts to permeate in your cells. And
Yes.
then
Yeah.
from there, you just surrender to love and you go where love wants you to take you. And love loves you so much that you don't really have to make any decisions anymore. You don't have to worry anymore. You just do the thing. And then your faith is so strong that no matter what happens, whether it's against what you wanted, maybe you wanted to go one direction, love took you in another direction, and you
Yeah.
even thought that direction was going to have a particular result, but it doesn't have the same result. Your deep faith, your deep inner knowing goes, okay, here I am now. What's next? And
That's amazing.
there's this ease. There's this ease that starts to come over your life.
And I think this is probably one of our challenges, or the challenges of our society, is that we probably underestimate how much love really can move, and we don't really experience love towards ourselves. So we kind of have a misconception probably about love or what it is supposed to be. And that's it makes it so difficult to recognize what is love. So there are so many people on the internet sometimes writing like, I don't believe in love. It's not there just because they probably have, yeah, they have like trouble in their romantic life or something, and they immediately say there is no love. And that's so interesting, because even me, although I always knew there is love because I felt it for other beings, but um, for the first time that I experienced it towards myself big times was this year, that I felt that so much. And I thought, oh, wow, that is what love feels like when it's pointed at me. That's incredible. And it was without any other being involved. And we don't even think about that, or I think we don't even have this idea that it is possible or what it feels like, because we kind of forget what it feels like to be or to feel loved.
Thank you for sharing that. I love the when you said no other beings, that
Yeah.
love that came from no other beings. When when people are speaking about they don't believe in love because of relationships and stuff, they're talking about a particular type of love, right?
Yes.
Romantic love.
Hmm.
And when we speak about romantic love, the common subconscious programming is it's like a puzzle piece where this person finds this person and now they're in love, right?
Yes.
But what true love is when you come to know your own self completely and you love yourself.
Yes.
This is actually a controversial statement that I had on one of my TikToks one time, is in order to truly love who you are now, you have to love everything that brought you to this moment. And that particular type of love is the love that comes from acceptance, pure acceptance of what is that brought you into this moment. And then once you have that acceptance of everything, all the trauma, all the bad decisions that led you to this, if you can find that love in this moment, complete being in love with yourself, you are in the space of love. You are literally in love. And then when you meet someone else, if they love themselves completely, they're in love. And then y'all are in love together. I can't take complete credit for this and this way of thinking. This comes from Ram Dass,
Hmm.
but it's very true. I found that true in my own life. I've gone through many before I found this path. I was in many relationships, married
Hmm.
twice, all sorts of things. And I realized that I was looking for the other to find love. When
Yeah.
you can't find something that's already in your pocket. You already have it. You can find it within yourself. And then if you find another person, well, then you're in love together. If you're in love together, then you grow together. And so it becomes this independent, bioluminescent love, where if the other person comes up to you and says, I have to leave you, there's something calling me somewhere else, I have to go. You look at the other person, you go, will this make you happy? They go, yes. And you go, okay, then go.
Bingo. And modern relationships, they sell you another image of love, or let's say society, media, we get another image of what love should be like. And it's so confusing, especially when you're very young and you didn't get in touch with spiritual practices. So people really believe their love is attached to other people. And I kind of thought that way, but I never really believed it. So it was easier for me to detach from it because it always felt off. It felt like wrong information. I don't know. I couldn't really relate to it. And now I'm like, I'm so relieved because I thought, okay, I'm not crazy. It was like that all the time. Love is such a big thing, a big word, and an even bigger thing. And whenever even you find this love within yourself, you will automatically be in touch with people who feel the same way, because you will kind of attract each other because you will understand what you're talking about.
Absolutely. And that comes into this other point of what true spirituality is. If we're growing up around these fundamental ways of going about religion, then we have this idea that spirituality means supernatural, or that the opposite of spirituality is materialism. And this is
Yes.
not the case. This is not the case. What is true spirituality? True spirituality is connection. And just like you were saying, we grow up and we think love is in another. We just don't think that, because we're only conditioned to know what romantic love is.
Yeah.
This deep inner love, how do we try to fulfill that? We try to fulfill it by pleasing our parents, pleasing society, by getting a good job, getting, climbing that
Yeah.
social, political, and material ladder. And what are we really searching for? Well, we're just searching for love. And you asked once again, why so young? Well, it's because once this truly clicks, this truth that we can hear over and over and over and over again, but it's only when the conditions are right
Mm-hmm.
that the fruit is grown.
Yeah.
So you can get told this over and over again, but until the conditions are just right, this will never really click. We will never find true happiness and true love in things that are impermanent. And seeing how the whole world is impermanent, the only thing that will bring everlasting peace, everlasting contentment, everlasting joy is what's permanent, which some traditions call God,
Mm-hmm.
other traditions call self, no self.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So interesting.
that permanent awareness that's deep within, we say the spiritual heart, we're not meaning the actual physical heart, it's just the center
Yeah.
of your being. And then you realize, wow, it's actually my spiritual practices that keep me in that space. Therefore, I'm always happy. And then from there, you take more chances in life, because life doesn't have this, we don't have this attachment to the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And without having attachment to the outcome, you take more risk, you play more, you dance more, and that builds up your energy. People get attracted to it, and you start to eventually create the kind of life that you wanted to manifest, but you realize it had nothing to do with your manifestation. You're
Yeah.
just becoming more and more aligned with your higher self and what your higher self wants.
Yes, you become a whole with it, or you recognize that you are one whole being, that you are not separate from it, that there is not a higher mind and you are like the little something, like insignificant part, that you are one whole being. And before we started the interview, it was so funny because I just made a little TikTok. I didn't publish it yet, on manifestation, because so many people believe that they need to ask for something, like for money. It doesn't make sense. It's even funny when you realize that, like, you're chasing your own tail the whole time. And since I'm noticing it more and more, and even within myself, I have major problems to take my life seriously. That's why I wanted to ask you, would you be able to live a regular life in a 9 to 5 job? Would you do that, or could you do that?
I would say yes, I could. And I have. It always reminds me of this, forget who said this. Actually, I know who said this. It's a very controversial figure, so I don't even know whether or not I should say his name. But okay, we'll just say it. This is an insanity podcast, so
Yes, yes.
he's an insane individual. But Charles Manson said this.
Perfect.
He goes, you can't protest against the lumber companies with paper. Everyone wants to leave their 9 to 5, but if the whole world did that, we wouldn't have plumbers or electricians, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to take your car to your off grid,
Yeah, yeah.
place in the mountains. And so there's this idea that we need to escape life. And in fact, there's this beautiful book. I have it over here. I can show it. It's called The New Monasticism. It's by Adam Bucko and Rory McGinty. And they're these beautiful, beautiful reverends and ministers, interfaith ministers. And they wrote this manifesto about how to be a monk in the real world. And well, not necessarily the real world. How do you be a monk in today's society?
Yes.
Because do we need the most spiritually evolved individuals out in the mountains? while the world's on fire? Not necessarily. And I
Yeah.
would say no, we need them in the world. And so this whole book is about how do you go about a 9 to 5 while
Mhm.
still being a monk?
I need
Because
this book.
again, once again, what do we think? We think we're going to find happiness when we escape the 9 to 5, maybe for a little bit. But there's this beautiful Zen saying that I about to get. I love this saying so much, and I say it so much, I want to get it like tattooed somewhere. I love tattoos.
Yeah.
And it's the only Zen that you find at the top of the mountain is the Zen that you bring with you.
I love it. I know it from you. You already had it on TikTok. I love that so much. Yes.
But also in that book, part of being a monk is you have to have a job that benefits the world. So you to have a job that is directly impacting the state of the world. Well, then
Mm.
that's something we need to question. But does that necessarily mean someone has to leave a traditional 9 to 5?
Yeah.
No. You can find lots of enlightened people who are just janitors. Osho talks about this.
Hmm.
Maybe they didn't have the karma to become, you know,
Hmm.
spiritual masters. They had the karma to be a janitor, and they're enlightened. They chop wood, they carry water, and they're happy. So we all each have particular dharmas, and it's about finding that. But don't get lost in thinking that it's the 9 to 5 that's causing you the unhappiness. It can have a part for sure. It can have a part. But once again, if it clicks, when it clicks, that true happiness and true love is a bioluminescent love. There are plenty of sadhus in
Yeah.
India that have no jobs,
Hmm.
that only live off the grace of God coming through individuals feeding them.
Hmm.
And they are the happiest individuals on earth. And they barely have a blanket to keep them warm.
Yeah.
So
I started questioning so much what I want to do next, and if this model itself, not because it's a 9 to 5, I think it's mainly because I feel that my priority is more on self-development and learning the whole time. So I'm like burning for doing it the whole time. I want to read, I want to meditate. I'm the whole time like in my magical world. And then I get reminded like, oh, I need to write some copies for my job, and it's still fun and I like that. But the other thing is kind of more exciting, but maybe it's just the process. I will have to figure that out. That's super, super interesting. I've also realized that there is a resistance in me when I listen to people who are spreading the message, we need to escape the matrix. So they call the material world the matrix and everyone needs to escape. And I feel so much resistance to it because I think, who says that the material world is wrong? We are here to experience it as well. Like the material world is as divine as the spirit world. And I don't want to devalue it. So I think, where do we want to escape and from what?
I never truly understood growing up and granted, when I grew up, I heard parrots speaking to me, is what I call them. They hear something and they just are like parrots and they speak it. A person who's deeply connected to spirit, when they say something, there's a transmission. If a parrot says it, that borrowed certainty, then the listener don't really have the space to intellectualize and process what the truth is.
Ah, yeah.
With that being said, I grew up with this idea that a good home or a good relationship is you put God first.
Mm-hmm.
Put God first. It took me up until very recently before I realized what that actually meant.
Yeah,
It
for
means
me
you
too.
put your practice first. If your life is centered around spirit, if it's centered around your practice, then once again, you don't really have to question where your life is going.
Yeah.
You just do what comes natural. You just do. And this is a high level of faith and surrender. Maybe it is quit the 9 to 5. Maybe your passion is in something else that has nothing to do with the 9 to 5. But I know plenty of people, and I don't have that karma, who really love the physics of plumbing. I talked to a plumber the other day that came to my house, and we talked for hours about the physics of plumbing, and he was just things that he likes to do. And he works a 9 to 5. He's a plumber. That's his,
Oh,
that's his dharma. We're not gonna and to sit there and talk to him about philosophy and all the stuff that interests me. I want to hear about what he's interested in.
yes. Yeah.
Your passion. I was like, wow, I never even thought about that. And so leaving your 9 to 5 and create a new life, that may be where you're headed. But we have to make sure that that is coming from love and not chasing.
Yes. Do you have another passion or hobby that doesn't fit at all into this whole concept of spirituality? Like not necessarily plumbing, but
Like you just said, it's all divine, So
yeah.
I'm an artist. I'm a musician. I slackline, I spin fire. I'm a very curious cat. And so I have lots
Oh,
of passion. I do magic sometimes. It's like a kid in a candy store. Once you find that love,
yes.
you can find passion in rocks.
D yeah, definitely. Like in everything. A friend of mine, and I think one of my first podcast guests once asked me if I could keep only one of my five senses, which is really like a mind game. But if I could just keep one of all of my senses, which one would it be? And it made me think and rethink the options so many times for so many months that I completely dived into all of my senses way, way deeper. And I started to experience the sense of touch from a new perspective, like realizing that my body is touching everything the whole time. And I never thought about it. And then you finally find this truth, which is so basic, which you kind of know, but you don't know, because you don't experience it consciously on your everyday basis. And um, that's so interesting. Like when you say you can explore a rock and be fascinated with that. So yeah, I can be fascinated with everything because I can just touch it and I think like, oh, it feels so special and it feels completely different from that rock or from that rock. And you can really, can be engaged with that for hours because you really pay attention.
And then you become the crazy person. Like, what's she doing? She's just playing with rocks over there. But where does that come from? It comes from your silent practice.
Yeah.
Because if you're picking up a rock and if you're coming in with the concept of a rock, there's a beautiful saying of a father was walking with his son down the beach, and the son looked up and looked at this object and he goes, "Dad, what is that?" And the father said, "It's a bird." And from that moment on, the child never saw a bird.
Oh,
We get put these ideas of what the world is and they stick, they get imprinted, and we carry with them day to day. And that karma adds and adds and adds until it becomes a perception of the world. You get someone who's full of thoughts that knows everything. They pick up a rock, oh, it's a rock. But if you
yes.
empty the mind, you see it's not just a rock. You've never seen this rock before. And even if you saw it yesterday, you haven't seen it today. And so by emptying our minds, we start to see what is and not what our idea of what is. Richard Rohr says we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. It's a very powerful statement.
Yes, because everything's a matter of perception, a matter of perspective, and you see things through your own personal lens. And whatever you carry within you, you will project it on reality. You can sit next to someone in a bus and we can look outside and we can see the same things, but somehow we will describe a different scenery at the end. So I will pay attention to a tree, the other person will pay attention to people. Or maybe we sit in the bus and someone looks out of the window and I look next to me and I watch the people in the bus. So we have like the same settings, the same reality, but we will have a completely different take on it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And is any of those realities actually what is, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. The beauty of emptying the mind, beginner's mind, or the uncarved block is what it's called in Taoism.
Yeah.
And then we see all of our ambitions, all of our motivations, all that comes from mind. And then that true liberation is that no mind state. And then from there, it's just this constant in and out of energy and life and colors and sounds. And we start to see the beauty of the world. And I wanted to go back a little bit when we were talking about manifestation, because
Hmm.
there's this really important point that I like to bring up when we speak about manifestation. Is when we hear about manifestation, you're right. A lot of it is maybe it's a new car or it's a new job or it's a new house or it's abundance and all these things. My question to people when we start to try to manifest these things is if manifestation is 100% real, no doubt that it is. We live in an infinite world. What if everyone that was basically praying and trying to manifest their own abundance, put that energy towards healing the world. What if your main manifestation was not for your own self, but to be the hands and feet of the beloved in order to heal the world?
I have an answer, I think, because it happened to, yeah, it happened to me one time that I, and it was not conscious manifestation or something, but I was working for a company and I really loved it, and it was in financial trouble. And I felt like I need to do something about it, and I was completely powerless. I was not in the position to do anything about it. So it was completely ridiculous, but I just felt it. I felt so sad, and I just wanted to do something. And I was like, "Oh, please,
Yeah.
please, I need something. I wanted to work. I wanted to work. I want them to get money. I want them to get a lot of money right now. I want them to succeed." And I was saying all that, and even the same day, people that I hardly knew invited me. Like, I didn't want anything for myself, but they invited me on a super expensive trip to France for free, everything. And I was like, wrong direction, wrong direction. It was like, I wanted it for somebody else. And then it worked big time for myself, but it was not supposed to. And I'm still thinking about this moment so often, or yeah, very often, because um of course you cannot turn it around and start to do it on purpose for other people because you want to get it back. It doesn't make any sense, you know. but it was a really interesting situation, and I'm sure it was because of that. It was because I put so much energy into giving it to someone.
That is such a beautiful example of where manifestation actually came from. So
Yeah.
if we look into now, from what I understand, this isn't necessarily traditional Tibetan Buddhism. It's more of a sect that came from Tibetan Buddhism. But one of the second videos that I made on TikTok, and it went viral pretty quickly after like my third video. And I realized in the future I didn't really want to do more videos like that. But it's about manifestation. I knew it would hit because it was a big topic. But the whole practice is whatever you want, you actually try to manifest it for someone else. And that's the secret. But truly for yourself, not I'm going to do it for someone else in order to return, but you just true it as seva, as we say in Hinduism, you do it as a completely selfless act. And then the fruits of that karma naturally come back to you. For me, manifestation is less about what I want and more about manifesting ways in which I can come into the flow of where my higher self wants to go. So it's less about I want to manifest abundance for my retreat company or abundance for money for my school or anything. It's all my whole practice comes from true faith, which is whatever is needed from me today, let me go about it without any resistance.
Yeah, I feel that.
And I think true manifestation is less about thinking about what you want, but more about coming into the flow of what your higher self is actually kind of taking you to. And I mean, when I mean higher self, I think what I mean is I think each individual has this untapped potential that can only come from laying down the ego. An example of this being Prabhupada, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, the Hare Krishna movement. This man was in his late 70s, came to America with nothing, and within 12 years had created this multi-million-dollar new type of religion in the West, the Hare Krishnas, and translated from Sanskrit hundreds of books, staying up until 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning without any sleep, translating. At like 78 years old, where does this energy come from? Yeah. Well, his energy came from his full submission and surrender to Krishna, right? His particular chosen God and form. And sometimes we're 30 years old, 40 years old, and sometimes we're like, oh, I don't have any energy to do anything today.
Yeah.
78-year-old man just translating text late into 4 a.m. And because that's what his dharma was. It's what his service was. And so I feel like when we tap into that, we kind of get fed with this unlimited energy, this one pointed concentration, one pointed awareness. And then we get to manifest more than we can possibly fathom. I truly believe that when we lay down the ego, surrender completely into spirit, that whatever we want isn't even close to what will come to us. Every dream are like peanuts compared to the buffet that lies within the untapped potential of the spiritual part.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that we often want things that we don't really want. We are conditioned to want certain things and we don't question them. So, as you say, it comes from the ego. I would say, it comes from the ego, but mainly from education. So, you are trained to want a certain kind of abundance, because abundance doesn't necessarily mean money. It can mean so many things. If someone gives me things as a present the whole time, so I get all the things for free that I would buy with money, what do I need the money for? So money is just a method to come to the abundance that you want, probably. But we are so focused on that symbols and on so many things that we probably wouldn't want. And this higher mind, so the entirety of your being, probably without being shadowed by this ego, by this programming, would probably choose something else. So if you were a child, let's say, before this whole pressure from society came upon you, so probably you would have chosen something completely different before you knew that you have to go for money, that you have to become a lawyer or whatever. Like, before you know that, maybe when you listen to your heart, you would know, oh no, that's the direction. This is more representative of who I am.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then once again, not finding those situations of that faith that where you are is where you need to be, and you love every aspect. I look back at my life and where my life is now. It's like, holy crap, I've been preparing my entire life to be in the position that I am now.
Yeah.
My entire life, when I was trying to become an actor, when I was in sports, when I got into like the Toastmasters public speaking organization and all these things, all that, had no idea. I thought I was doing all that stuff for me, but I had no idea all that was preparing me to be like a minister, using speech and using
Yes.
all those qualities to spread the joy of truth, the joy of the spirit, so people can live happier lives. And so, for instance, take the lawyer, for example. The lawyer might go into a certain school of law and realize, well, wait a minute, I don't like this school of law. So they go to a different school of law that actually helps the world. There's this John Cobbs. He's one of the main authorities on process theology. And that's a whole, I mean, if you love philosophy, you get into process theology. But a lot of his work, his service work, imagine this dedication. Imagine this. And we talk about people want to quit the 9 to 5 in order to go off into an island somewhere. And that's, I mean, don't get me wrong, I kind of want to do that too. And I hope I can do that one day. But I realized, and we almost did. We almost bought some land in Costa Rica, but then Spirit came down. It's like, who are you going to be here, this island? You're going to eat bananas and mangoes all day? That's beautiful. What about people suffering back home? All right. So this is where my work is. But John Cobbs had a certain group of people that went to school for banking to specifically get into these corporate banks so they could deny loans to these big corporations that were getting more into the fossil fuel industry, or like the lumberjack industry, deforestation, things like this. They trained, got jobs in a bank, just so when that moment came of this big corporation that wants to clear out the Amazon, they can deny them a loan. That is love. That is compassion in action. That is spirit in action. Something that is coming about with this interspiritual age that's a negative is we're taking spirit, these spiritual technologies, as a way to actually secretly enhance the ego for our own gain, instead of merging spirit with the heart and coming into spirit in action.
Yeah.
And so you have these people, their entire life are just being in a bank just so they can help the earth.
That's incredible.
That's a saint, you know.
Yes. Do you have someone who inspires you most?
Oh wow, I mean, you inspire me.
Really?
Yes, you do. Look at the work you're doing.
Thank
It's
you.
beautiful. Um, oh, I have so many gurus. The gurus are everywhere. The gurus are everywhere.
Yeah,
I would say if I were to look around me right now, who do I see? Ram Dass.
yeah,
Ram Dass. Neem Karoli Baba has been a guru of mine, receiving darshan from him in a dream. Oh, Richard Rohr, Thomas Merton, Thomas Keating, Sarva Priyananda. Like I really can't. There's
yeah,
just
yeah, so many. Mm.
the gurus everywhere, and Alan Watts came in and got my mind thinking, and then Ram Dass came in and got my heart pounding,
Mhm,
So the
mhm.
marriage of those two. My teachers from the Nepal Yoga Home, Yogi Prakash, Yogi Raj, Yogi Dipendra, my gurus from my school, Dr. Reverend Andre Von Zyl, Deborah Von Zyl. That's one thing is we need to have respect for our teachers.
Yeah,
I always think about like just say the Buddha or Jesus or Vivekananda or Ramanasana Yogananda, Ramana Maharshi, these guys, Mother Teresa, these guys were so in love. They could have just went to a mountain and died in their bliss, but their
mhm.
compassion for the world was so big and so all-consuming that they spent the rest of their lives teaching. And they didn't have to do this. And so it always almost brings me to tears thinking about how much I love these spiritual masters.
I find that so beautiful that you just reminded me that it's not about just your own bliss. It's not about feeling blissful and isolate yourself in the mountains, because I have a tendency to do that, to be just by myself. But you're so, so right. It's more about carrying your bliss, carrying your joy out in the world, not to keep it for yourself.
Solitude is necessary. I forget who said this, but when we are alone, we should remind ourselves that God sent everyone else away so that it can be alone with us.
Yeah.
So solitude is very important. And but never, I always say, always alone, never lonely.
Yes.
Always alone, but never lonely. And you actually, the deeper you get into that Advaita Vedanta school of philosophy, you start to see, well, you're actually always alone. You're always alone.
That,
And
yes.
your bliss and to spread your bliss to others is actually not spreading your bliss to others. It's spreading bliss to you. And when we can truly see the world as just reflections. I used to do this I randomly had this um method come into my head one time during meditation, and I try to practice it a lot, is a test to see where I'm at in my practice. For instance, if someone shows me a group photo and I'm in it, where does my eyes go?
To you.
If it goes towards me, I notice that I'm a little bit out of my practice, because when I'm in my practice, it goes to, I mean, my eyes might go to me, but it's from this, but most of the time it's going to, when it used to be 100% towards me. Now, if there's four people, then it's only 25% it might go towards me, because I see all of it as myself. And I
Yeah.
automatically go and see the beauty of the other people. How many times you're like, that's a great photo. And they're like, yeah, it's a good photo of you. And then you look and you're like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like you actually
Yeah,
would
yeah,
care,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because you only look at ourselves. And so for me, this
Yeah.
idea, this method came into me during meditation one day of, as a tester, where are you at in your practice?
That's
Where's your
cool.
attention going towards?
Yeah. Well,
If that
that's
makes
powerful. A lot, yes. It was this year that I tried plant medicine for the first time. So I never did that before. And this year, the first time, I didn't feel anything. Then the second time, actually a lot. Because the second time I did it, I was entirely alone. This is what I felt. I felt like I'm here forever. I'm myself forever. Um, I'm everything forever. And I'm watching myself from another perspective, watching me doing random things like, okay, cool that I'm doing something there, but yeah, but I'm here like forever and ever and ever. And the whole room that I was in was there forever. All the things in this room were there forever, and was such an interesting feeling. I felt entirely alone, but not lonely.
Mm, yes.
I kind of also thought that's such an interesting thing, this teacher from the earth, let's say it like that, because I think some things I'm not sure if I would have been able to experience them, maybe through meditation at some point also, yeah, because there were other things that I experienced before. But this intensity, because it is like you don't question that it is what it is, because normally even if I have insights in meditations and when I wake up from them, i I still had the tendency to think maybe it's just a thought, maybe it's not reality, but this was so deep that I had no choice to question my experience. I really knew completely with everything that I am, I knew that it's just here and now. And this can sound, for people who are not in this practice at all, can sound like empty words, can sound like things that you post or things that you write on your walls, like nice quotes. So to some people, it can sound so empty. Then when you're deeper in your meditation practice, then you understand that it is like that. And in that scenario, I knew that there is nothing else but that. It was really powerful, this insight.
The ones with ears listen to that. The ones who can relate to that experience hear you. So I hear you, and I'm so grateful for you to have had that experience. That type of experience changed my life. And for me, plant medicine are, I think, one of the world's best catalysts, but they're not good sustainers.
Yeah.
For me, there's nothing more powerful than a true deep plant medicine experience. And then from that experience, now what? And then for me, what daily meditation is, what daily gratitude is, daily devotion, these are ways to sustain that experience so that it never goes away. It's not nearly as jarring or as powerful, but we actually find, at least I've found in my own practice, that now when I actually go back to plant medicines, the experience is wonderful, but I find myself going, I kind of want to go back to that quiet joy,
Ah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
that quiet joy that's ever present, that doesn't go up or down, that just kind of just is just right here. And it's aware of the sadness, it's aware of the happiness, but it doesn't get caught in that turbulence, in this
Yes.
equanimity. And I think I'm glad you brought up plant medicine. In that book, The New Monasticism, they talk about what they believe is what they're kind of dubbing the second axial age. The first axial age being during the time of Confucius and Buddhism, and Jesus Christ and Socrates, and the pre-axial age being the tribe mentality. And then you have all these individual thinkers that spread out now, all these different ways of thinking,
Yeah.
bringing individuality into the world. Well, now we're coming into the second axial age where that individuality has led too much separateness. So we want to go back to the tribe, but we can't go back to the jungle. That's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
now we have the merging of that pre-axial age and the axial age coming together, bringing in this tribal methodologies of connecting with the earth through plant medicine and mystical experiences mixed with the individual, and to turn into who knows what's going to come
Yeah.
out of it.
Yes.
But once again, there's always a cautionary tale. And for me, and I've seen it within my own community, I have been the integration coach for a lot of plant medicine ceremonies. I've seen people have psychotic breaks. I've seen people
Wow.
actually worse off than they were before because they experience this amazing blissful unity experience, and they go back to their small town in the middle of the desert in Nevada with no community, and now you know their relative experiences, they experienced this much happiness, they went back down to here, and now the gap is so huge that they're actually worse off than they were before. So I believe the question coming into this new generation and this new age is, what do we do to sustain these beautiful experiences that come from these amazing catalysts into a grounded, simple joy that is present every single day? And for me, it's going back kind of to the traditional mystic contemplative practices of daily devotion, daily meditation, service oriented mindset, reading of these of scriptures, and
Mhm.
contemplating on them and how to navigate your life with these codes now installed in you. And then maybe every 6 months or once a year, you need like a nice refresher so you can have another ceremony. But when we
Yeah.
start to worship the substance, we
Yes.
find ourselves getting so far out here that now we have both our feet in the spirit when we should be like Jesus and have one foot in the spirit and one foot in this world.
Yes.
And from there, we have the heart and we have the play merged together.
That's also my idea, to sustain the idea by using the experience that I had as an inspiration. Like I knew what it felt like, so I experienced it already. So now my only job is to recreate the feeling because now I had it. So whatever I experienced, I can bring into my own experience again. If it was new to me, then would be, of course, a little bit difficult. And I've realized that this is a really nice method because sometimes things came to me in dreams. Like I didn't know what certain feelings felt like, if that makes sense. So there were certain things that I didn't know that they exist. So I didn't know what, for example, one kind of connection could feel like, or what my feeling towards another person could feel like. And I just had a dream where it was like that. So I just had this experience. And then I woke up and I thought, oh my God, what was that? I never felt this way before, but I liked it. So I just kept this feeling. So I just entertained it. And every time I missed it, I started to recreate it. And I think it's
Mm,
the same with the plant medicine. You have this experience. So your body, your mind, your heart, everything knows what it felt like. So now you can just go back to this memory and you can bring it back.
absolutely. There's this. Are you familiar with jhanas in Buddhism?
Uh, just a little bit.
So there's multiple levels of jhanas, and there's basically these states that you can get in through meditation. The first jhana being pure bliss and pure joy. Now, well, I shouldn't say joy. I should say bliss. The
Yes.
very ecstatic ecstasy type of blissful feeling. But that's just the first jhana.
Mhm.
And meditators who get lost in that are called jhana drunk because they just want to keep going back to the bliss, the
Yes.
bliss, the bliss.
Mhm.
But there's like 9 of them. So we have to move beyond the bliss. The bliss, the bliss is just this, it's an ecstatic state. And are
Mhm.
we really looking for ecstatic states that come and go? Once again, there we get lost in the impermanence. And for me, I always say this in my yoga practices. After the class, I ask people, well, how do you feel?
Mhm.
When we first started the class, and now how do you feel? I'm like, oh, I feel more peaceful. I feel more clear headed. I feel a little bit more joyful. In which I respond, did yoga give you this? Did yoga give you this? And some might say, yes, yoga gave me this. And I say, no, no, no. Yoga did not give you anything. If you have a dirty table and there's mud all over the table and you get a sponge and you cleanse the table, do you say the sponge gave you a clean table? No, the sponge removed all the muck that was preventing the natural clean table to shine. And so that's what our spiritual practice does. It just removes all the impurities
Yes.
that's being collected
Mhm.
that covers the natural joy that's inside of us. Our joy is innate. The mind gets in the way.
Yeah.
And mushrooms have this beautiful ability to dissolve the ego and bring us into that state of just pure connection. But we can experience that every day.
Yes, I love that. How many retreats do you have this year?
We have a trip called a Himalayan Odyssey
Oh yeah,
in
yeah. Mm.
so October 24th through November 7th, I believe, we will be in Kathmandu and Pokhara, trekking the Himalayan mountains, visiting some ashrams, and taking
Wow.
people to our gurus. And then next year we have 3. We have 3 big retreats lined up. Plant medicine retreat. In Akumal, we've met with this their company name is Ancestral Ceremony and Ritual. And it's this beautiful Mayan family. We did a sweat lodge with them this year, and it was absolutely one of my favorite experiences of my life. And they also do cactus peyote ceremony. So we're staying at this resort that has a cenote on site, these underground cave water systems. And we're going to be doing a Mayan sweat lodge ceremony, dip in the water, and then we do a cactus ceremony from dusk till dawn. And that's going to be in February.
I will check that. I would really love to come.
We would absolutely love to have you. I think this is our second time actually
Yeah,
communicating,
yeah, yeah.
and I feel so connected to you and
Yeah, me
um,
too.
what that you're doing. And so I just want to say thank you. You know, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for getting individuals on here to have people stop and think, to ponder, to ask questions. Because when we ask questions, we open doors.
Thank you. Thank you for being so inspiring, really. Since I even had TikTok, I was following you. I love your content. It's really amazing. And yeah, I hope I can be part of one retreat very soon. I will try and definitely let you know as soon as I know something.
Mm.
Thank you so much for the interview. I enjoyed it very much. It was a pleasure to talk again. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's stay in touch.
Yes.
And I bless you with a healthy body, a peaceful mind, and a joyful heart. And I look forward to seeing your continuous blossoming into the wonderful fragrance that you're sharing with the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.